I walked into my house after work to find my 17-year-old daughter Emma sobbing hysterically on the bathroom floor, surrounded by 6 years' worth of her beautiful auburn hair, scattered like fallen autumn leaves across the white tile. My sister Jessica stood over her holding scissors, smirking with satisfaction. Emma's scalp showed patches where the hair was yanked out by the roots, leaving raw bleeding spots. The sight made my stomach drop, and my hands shake with rage I had never felt before in my entire life. My name is Kane, and until that moment, I thought I understood my family. I'm 35 years old, work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Denver, and believed my biggest worry was helping Emma choose the right college. Standing in that bathroom doorway, watching my daughter's devastation, I realized how wrong I had been about everything. Emma started growing her hair when she was 11 years old. She had just watched Tangled for the 100th time and announced she wanted hair like Rapunzel. Sarah and I thought it was just another childhood phase, but Emma proved us wrong. Every morning before school, she would spend 30 minutes carefully brushing and braiding her hair. She researched natural hair care remedies, learned about different vitamins that promoted growth, and turned hair maintenance into an art form. By the time she turned 17, Emma's hair reached past her waist. The color was stunning, a natural auburn that caught sunlight like spun copper. Other girls at Roosevelt High School would stop her in hallways, asking about her routine. She had become known throughout the school as the girl with the incredible hair. Teachers would comment on it during parent conferences. Her boyfriend, Tyler, would often just run his fingers through it while they studied together at our kitchen table. The hair had become more than just her appearance. It represented Emma's patience, her commitment to something beautiful, her growing confidence as she prepared for adulthood. She had plans to donate 12 inches to charity before starting college, keeping enough length to maintain her signature look. The donation appointment was scheduled for next month after homecoming photos were taken. My sister Jessica had always been different. 3 years younger than me, she never found her footing after high school. While I went to college, got married, started a career, and built a family, Jessica bounced between retail jobs and community college courses she never finished. She still lived with our parents in the same house where we grew up, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, with boy band posters still taped to the walls. Jessica had been married briefly, at 24, to a guy named Brandon, who worked at an auto parts store. The marriage lasted 8 months before Brandon filed for divorce, claiming Jessica had anger management issues and had destroyed his belongings during arguments. Since then, she had dated sporadically, but never maintained a relationship longer than a few months. Our parents, Robert and Patricia, enabled Jessica's struggles by providing free housing, groceries, and spending money. They constantly made excuses for her behavior, claiming she was just going through a tough time and would eventually find her path. Meanwhile, they would make subtle criticisms about Sarah and me, being too strict with Emma, or too focused on material success. That Tuesday had started as a celebration. Dad's 62nd birthday was actually the following week, but Mom wanted to have a family dinner while Sarah was still in town. Sarah worked as a marketing executive for a national outdoor equipment company and traveled frequently for trade shows and client meetings. She was scheduled to fly to Seattle the next morning for a 3-day conference. Jessica arrived at our house around 4 in the afternoon, unusually cheerful and talkative. She brought Dad a gift bag containing a fishing tackle box and complimented Mom's pot roast. But I noticed she kept staring at Emma throughout dinner, making comments about how beautiful Emma's hair looked and how lucky she was to have such natural beauty. After we finished eating, Emma excused herself to use the bathroom and start her homework. Jessica followed her a few minutes later, claiming she needed to fix her makeup. I was helping Mom clear the table when we heard Emma's screams coming from upstairs. The sound was unlike anything I had ever heard from my daughter, a combination of terror and betrayal that made my blood freeze. By the time I reached the bathroom, Jessica had already done most of the damage. Emma sat on the floor, her hands desperately trying to cover the uneven patches where her hair had been chopped. Jessica held a pair of professional haircutting shears, the kind used in actual salons. These were not household scissors, but serious cutting tools that could slice through hair efficiently. That was when I discovered the first shocking truth about what Jessica had done. This had not been a spontaneous act of sibling rivalry or a moment of poor judgment. Jessica had planned this attack carefully and deliberately. She had purchased the professional scissors specifically for this purpose and had spent weeks researching the most effective ways to cut long hair quickly. The horror deepened when I found Jessica's phone on the bathroom counter still recording. She had documented the entire assault, capturing Emma's pleas for mercy and her desperate attempts to escape. The video showed Jessica grabbing handfuls of Emma's hair and sawing through them methodically while Emma begged her to stop and tried to pull away. Jessica had even recorded herself laughing at Emma's tears and telling her she deserved this for being so vain about her appearance. Emma's testimony, delivered through broken sobs and gasping breaths, revealed the calculated cruelty of Jessica's actions. My daughter described how Jessica had knocked on the bathroom door, claiming she wanted to help fix a small tangle she had noticed in Emma's hair during dinner. Trusting her Aunt Emma had let Jessica into the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet seat while Jessica stood behind her. Jessica had started by gently running her fingers through Emma's hair, complimenting its softness and length. She asked Emma about her hair care routine and whether she ever got tired of maintaining such long hair. Emma, flattered by the attention, had relaxed and started explaining her morning routine and favorite hair products. Without warning, Jessica grabbed a massive section of hair near Emma's right ear and began cutting through it with powerful strokes. Emma's first instinct was confusion rather than alarm. She asked Jessica what she was doing and tried to stand up, but Jessica pushed her back down and grabbed another handful of hair from the opposite side. The realization of what was happening hit Emma when she saw the first long section of auburn hair fall to the floor. She started screaming for Jessica to stop and tried to cover her head with her hands, but Jessica was stronger and more determined. She grabbed Emma's wrists and held them down while continuing to cut. Emma described the sound of the scissors slicing through her hair, a sharp snipping noise that seemed to echo off the bathroom walls. She could feel the weight of her hair disappearing section by section, years of growth destroyed in minutes. When she tried to escape, Jessica grabbed her by the remaining hair and yanked hard enough to pull out strands from the roots, leaving painful bleeding spots on Emma's scalp. The physical evidence supported every detail of Emma's account. Auburn hair covered every surface of the small bathroom. The longest pieces measured nearly 2 feet, representing years of careful growth. The cuts were jagged and uneven, clearly made by someone with no haircutting experience, who was focused on causing maximum damage rather than creating any particular style. Most disturbing was the discovery that Jessica had not limited her destruction to Emma's hair. While Emma was trying to process what had happened, I found that Jessica had also entered Emma's bedroom and systematically destroyed other important items. Emma's homecoming dress, a beautiful navy blue gown we had purchased just 2 weeks earlier, had been cut into ribbons with the same professional scissors. Jessica had dumped Emma's makeup collection into the bathroom sink and run water over it, destroying hundreds of dollars worth of products Emma had saved her babysitting money to purchase. School photos from Emma's junior year, the ones she planned to include with college applications, had been torn into pieces and scattered across her bedroom floor. But the most sinister discovery came when I examined Jessica's phone more carefully. She had not only recorded the haircutting assault, but had also filmed herself destroying Emma's possessions while narrating her actions. In the video, Jessica expressed satisfaction about ruining Emma's homecoming plans and college application materials. She talked about teaching Emma a lesson about vanity and privilege. Even worse, I found evidence that Jessica planned to share these videos publicly. Her phone showed draft posts for various social media platforms, with captions designed to humiliate Emma in front of her classmates. Jessica had researched Emma's social media accounts, identified her friends and boyfriend, and planned to send them all copies of the assault video. She wanted to destroy not just Emma's appearance, but her reputation and social connections. Emma's trauma extended beyond the physical damage to her hair. She had trusted Jessica completely and never imagined her aunt would hurt her. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical injury. Emma kept repeating that she didn't understand why Jessica hated her so much and what she had done wrong to deserve such treatment. I helped Emma to her bedroom and called Sarah immediately, knowing she needed to know what had happened before her flight the next morning. Sarah's response was immediate fury, followed by practical action planning. She told me to document everything, take photos of the damage, and not let Jessica leave until we decided how to handle the situation. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, Emma's pediatrician since childhood, agreed to see Emma that evening for an emergency appointment. She documented the injuries to Emma's scalp and provided medical records of the trauma for potential legal proceedings. Emma's scalp showed multiple areas where hair had been pulled out forcefully, causing bleeding and inflammation that would take weeks to heal completely. The psychological impact was equally severe. Emma refused to look in mirrors and wanted to stay home from school indefinitely. Her boyfriend Tyler came over that evening and was visibly shocked by what had happened. He held Emma while she cried and promised to help her get through this. But I could see the anger in his eyes when he learned the details of Jessica's assault. Emma's guidance counselor at Roosevelt High School, Mrs. Rebecca Thompson, contacted us after Tyler told his parents what had happened. She explained that Emma could receive extensions on college applications, and arrangements could be made for her to complete coursework from home if needed. The school also offered counseling services and assistance with rescheduling senior photos once Emma's hair had time to recover. What struck me most was Emma's concern for others, despite her own trauma. She worried about disappointing her homecoming date, letting down her college interview schedulers, and causing family conflict. Even after being brutally attacked, Emma was trying to protect everyone else's feelings and minimize the impact of what had been done to her. The family betrayal began unfolding when our parents Robert and Patricia arrived at our house an hour after the assault. I had called them expecting support and shared outrage about Jessica's actions. Instead, their response shattered my understanding of our family dynamics and revealed years of hidden resentment I never knew existed. Dad walked into our living room, looked at Emma's tear-stained face and her brutally chopped hair, and his first comment was asking what Emma had done to provoke Jessica. He suggested that Emma must have said something insulting about Jessica's appearance or made her feel bad about her life situation. When I explained that Emma had done absolutely nothing wrong, Dad shook his head and muttered about teenagers being dramatic about everything. Mom's reaction was even more shocking. She sat down next to Emma on the couch, looked at the destroyed hair, and announced that maybe this was a good thing. Patricia claimed Emma had become too focused on her appearance, and that losing her hair would teach her about inner beauty and humility. She said Emma had been acting vain lately and needed to learn that looks weren't everything. When I showed them the video evidence of Jessica's premeditated assault, both parents dismissed its significance. Dad claimed siblings fight all the time, and this was just normal family conflict blown out of proportion. Mom suggested that Emma was overreacting and would appreciate having shorter hair once she got used to it. They both insisted Jessica had not intended to cause serious harm and was probably just trying to help Emma try a new look. The conversation became increasingly hostile as I realized my parents were completely unwilling to acknowledge the severity of Jessica's actions. When I mentioned calling the police or pressing charges, Dad became angry and accused me of trying to destroy the family over a haircut. Mom started crying and claiming I was being cruel to Jessica, who was already struggling with unemployment and depression. Robert revealed years of buried resentment about my marriage to Sarah and our family's success. He complained that Sarah and I acted superior to the rest of the family and spoiled Emma with expensive clothes activities and opportunities. He claimed Emma looked down on Jessica and needed to be taught a lesson about treating family members with respect. Patricia joined in expressing frustration about feeling excluded from our lives because we lived in a nicer neighborhood and could afford things they couldn't. She accused Sarah and me of showing off our success and making Jessica feel inadequate about her life situation. According to Mom, Emma's beautiful hair was just another example of how our family had advantages that Jessica would never enjoy. The confrontation escalated when I defended Emma and pointed out that she had never been anything but kind to Jessica. Emma had always been respectful to her grandparents, and Aunt never complained about family gatherings and frequently asked about Jessica's well-being. Dad responded by claiming Emma was fake and manipulative, suggesting she only acted nice to make others look bad. The betrayal deepened when I discovered the extent to which my parents had been enabling Jessica's increasingly destructive behavior. Over the past 3 years, they had been providing financial support for Jessica's legal troubles, including attorney fees and fines related to multiple arrests and citations. Jessica had been arrested 18 months earlier for vandalizing her ex-boyfriend Marcus's truck, causing over $3,000 in damage by slashing tires, breaking windows, and spray painting profanity on the vehicle. Rather than allowing Jessica to face consequences, our parents had paid for a lawyer who negotiated a plea deal involving restitution and community service. 6 months after the vandalism arrest, Jessica was fired from her job at a local retail store for harassing a co-worker named Amanda, who had received a promotion Jessica wanted. The harassment included following Amanda to her car after work, sending threatening text messages, and spreading rumors about Amanda's personal life among other employees. When Amanda obtained a restraining order, Jessica violated it twice before being arrested for contempt of court. Most recently, Jessica had been charged with theft after being caught shoplifting expensive makeup and jewelry from a department store. Security cameras showed her concealing items worth over $500, which elevated the charge to a felony. Our parents had hired another attorney and were making payments on the legal fees, while Jessica attended court-ordered counseling sessions. Throughout all these incidents, Robert and Patricia had hidden the details from me, while continuing to describe Jessica as a victim of bad circumstances and unfair treatment. They created elaborate stories about Jessica's job loss being due to workplace discrimination, and her legal troubles being the result of misunderstandings or false accusations by vindictive people. The financial support extended beyond legal expenses. Our parents had been paying Jessica's car insurance, cell phone bills, and credit card debts while she lived rent-free in their house. They bought her groceries, clothes, and entertainment expenses while she claimed to be looking for employment. Meanwhile, they criticized Sarah and me for spending money on Emma's activities and college preparation. When I confronted them about enabling Jessica's destructive behavior, Dad became defensive and accused me of abandoning my sister when she needed family support. Mom claimed I was being judgmental and needed to show more compassion for Jessica's struggles with mental health and unemployment. They both insisted Jessica was making progress and would eventually overcome her problems with continued family assistance. The conversation reached a breaking point when I realized my parents viewed Emma's assault as justified punishment for our family's perceived arrogance and success. They seemed to believe Jessica had done nothing wrong by attacking a 17-year-old girl and destroying her property. Their loyalty to Jessica was absolute, regardless of evidence or consequences. Patricia actually suggested that Emma should apologize to Jessica for making her feel bad about her own appearance and life situation. She claimed Emma's beauty and opportunities had been hurtful to Jessica, and that Emma needed to be more sensitive to her aunt's feelings. When I rejected this suggestion completely, both parents accused me of being stubborn and unwilling to consider Jessica's perspective. The family meeting ended with Robert and Patricia storming out of our house, claiming they were disappointed in me for not supporting Jessica during a difficult time. Dad announced that unless I dropped any plans for legal action and required Emma to apologize to Jessica, they would consider me to be choosing sides against the family. Mom added that they expected Emma to forgive Jessica and move forward as if nothing had happened. Standing in my driveway watching my parents drive away, I felt like my entire understanding of family had crumbled. The people who raised me, who I thought shared basic values about right and wrong, had just defended a brutal assault on their granddaughter and demanded she apologize to her attacker. I realized that protecting Emma meant accepting that my relationship with my parents might never recover. Sarah's flight was scheduled for early Wednesday morning, but she changed her plans the moment I called her about the assault. As a marketing executive accustomed to crisis management and strategic planning, Sarah immediately shifted into professional mode and began organizing a comprehensive response to Jessica's attack. Sarah arrived home from her hotel at 10:30 that evening and spent the first hour comforting Emma and documenting the damage. She photographed Emma's injured scalp from multiple angles, cataloged the destroyed possessions, and recorded Emma's detailed statement about the assault. Sarah's background in corporate communications had taught her the importance of thorough documentation when dealing with serious incidents. While I helped Emma get ready for bed, Sarah began researching legal options and building a case file. She contacted our family attorney David Richardson and scheduled an emergency meeting for the following morning. Sarah also reached out to Detective Lisa Chen at the Denver Police Department, who specialized in domestic violence and assault cases involving family members. Sarah's first strategic move was exposing Jessica's actions to her employer, a chain restaurant where Jessica had recently started working as a hostess. Sarah called the general manager, Michael Torres, and shared the assault video along with details about Jessica's criminal history and pattern of violent behavior. Michael was horrified by the footage and immediately terminated Jessica's employment, citing the company's zero-tolerance policy for violence. The termination had immediate financial consequences for Jessica, who lost her income source and health insurance benefits. More importantly, it created a documented employment record of Jessica being fired for violent conduct, which would impact future job applications and background checks. Sarah's next target was Jessica's social media presence. Using her professional skills in digital marketing, Sarah began systematically reporting Jessica's accounts for harassment and violent content. She documented Jessica's history of posting aggressive and threatening messages, including recent posts about teaching spoiled teenagers lessons about respect and humility. The social media strategy expanded when Sarah discovered Jessica's plan to share the assault video publicly. Sarah contacted platform administrators and provided evidence of Jessica's intentions to cyberbully a minor through non-consensual video sharing. Within hours, Jessica's primary social media accounts were suspended pending investigation. Sarah also activated her professional network to support Emma's recovery. Through her company's employee assistance program, Sarah arranged for Emma to receive counseling from Dr. Michelle Garrett, a therapist specializing in trauma recovery for adolescents. Dr. Garrett agreed to provide accelerated treatment to help Emma process the assault and rebuild her confidence before college application deadlines. The investigation Sarah conducted into Jessica's background revealed far more extensive criminal activity than our parents had disclosed. Working with David Richardson, Sarah obtained court records showing Jessica's complete legal history, including sealed juvenile records that detailed a pattern of aggressive behavior dating back to high school. Jessica's juvenile record included arrests for fighting at school, vandalizing property, and threatening other students. At age 16, she had been expelled from Roosevelt High School for attacking a classmate who received an academic award Jessica had wanted. The victim, a girl named Lauren Phillips, required medical treatment for scratches and bruises after Jessica cornered her in a bathroom and assaulted her. The parallels between the high school incident and Emma's assault were disturbing. In both cases, Jessica had targeted younger girls she perceived as privileged or successful. Both attacks occurred in bathrooms where victims felt safe and trusted Jessica initially. Both incidents involved Jessica recording or photographing her victim's distress for her own entertainment. Sarah's research also uncovered financial crimes our parents had hidden from me. Jessica had been stealing from Robert and Patricia for over 2 years, forging Mom's signature on checks and using Dad's credit cards for unauthorized purchases. Bank records showed thousands of dollars in fraudulent transactions that our parents had covered up by making payments and avoiding police reports. The theft pattern included forging checks to cash, using credit cards for online gambling, and selling items from our parents' house without permission. Jessica had stolen and sold Mom's jewelry, Dad's fishing equipment, and valuable collectibles, while claiming the items had been lost or misplaced. Robert and Patricia had discovered the thefts, but chose to handle them privately rather than involving law enforcement. Most shocking was Sarah's discovery that Jessica had previously violated a restraining order filed by her former co-worker, Amanda. Court records showed Jessica had been arrested twice for approaching Amanda at her new workplace and following her home after work. Despite violating court orders, Jessica received only probation and mandatory counseling because our parents hired an expensive attorney who negotiated reduced charges. Sarah compiled all this evidence into a comprehensive file, documenting Jessica's escalating pattern of violence, theft, and stalking behavior. The file demonstrated that Emma's assault was not an isolated incident, but part of a clear progression of increasingly serious crimes that had been enabled by family members unwilling to hold Jessica accountable. Armed with this evidence, Sarah developed a multi-pronged legal strategy. She scheduled meetings with prosecutors to discuss assault charges, contacted Emma's school administrators to document the impact on Emma's education, and arranged for medical professionals to evaluate Emma's physical and psychological injuries. Sarah also began building a civil case for damages related to Emma's medical treatment, counseling expenses, and educational disruption. The destroyed possessions alone represented thousands of dollars in losses, but the real damages involved Emma's emotional trauma and the impact on her college preparation during a critical time in her academic career. The documentation process revealed the premeditated nature of Jessica's attack. Phone records showed Jessica had researched haircutting techniques and watched instructional videos about cutting long hair quickly and efficiently. She had purchased professional scissors specifically for the assault and had practiced cutting motions using wigs and rope to prepare for attacking Emma. Text messages between Jessica and her friend Monica revealed that Jessica had been planning the assault for weeks. She had discussed her resentment toward Emma and her desire to teach our family a lesson about privilege and appearance-focused vanity. Monica had actually encouraged Jessica's plan and offered to help share the assault video online to maximize Emma's humiliation. By Thursday evening, Sarah had transformed our response from reactive confusion to strategic legal action. Jessica was facing criminal charges, civil liability, and social consequences that would follow her permanently. The evidence file Sarah compiled would make conviction likely and would prevent Jessica from claiming the assault was a misunderstanding or moment of poor judgment. Sarah's approach was methodical and devastating. She understood that protecting Emma required completely dismantling Jessica's ability to cause future harm, while ensuring that enablers like our parents faced consequences for their role in allowing Jessica's behavior to escalate. Sarah was determined to ensure that Emma received justice and that our family would never again be vulnerable to Jessica's violence. Grandma Helen arrived at our house Friday afternoon without calling ahead, something she had never done in the 20 years I had known her. At 80 years old, Helen remained sharp, independent, and formidable. She drove her own car, managed her own finances, and commanded respect from everyone in our extended family. Her unannounced visit meant something serious had happened. Patricia had called Helen Thursday night in a panic, seeking support for Jessica and trying to convince Helen that Sarah and I were overreacting to a minor family dispute. Mom painted Jessica as the victim of our family's harsh judgment and begged Helen to intervene before legal proceedings destroyed Jessica's future. Helen listened to Patricia's version of events, asked pointed questions, and requested to speak directly with Emma before making any judgments. Patricia reluctantly agreed, probably assuming Helen would side with Jessica once she understood the family dynamics involved. Helen's first stop was Emma's bedroom, where my daughter was working on homework while wearing one of my baseball caps to cover her damaged hair. Helen took one look at Emma's tear-stained face and the evidence of her destroyed possessions, and her expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. Emma trusted Helen completely, and provided an honest, detailed account of Jessica's assault. She showed Helen the areas where her hair had been pulled out by the roots, explained how Jessica had planned and recorded the attack, and described the destruction of her homecoming dress and college application materials. Helen examined the physical evidence, carefully reviewed the video footage Sarah had compiled, and asked Emma specific questions about Jessica's behavior during previous family gatherings. Emma mentioned several incidents where Jessica had made uncomfortable comments about Emma's appearance and achievements, including suggestions that Emma was spoiled and didn't deserve her opportunities. After spending an hour with Emma, Helen asked to speak privately with Sarah and me. Her first question was why Jessica had not been arrested immediately after the assault. When we explained our parents' objections and attempts to minimize the situation, Helen's face flushed with anger I had never witnessed before. Helen revealed that she had observed concerning behavior from Jessica during family gatherings over the past 5 years, but had been told by Robert and Patricia that Jessica was receiving appropriate help for her problems. She described incidents where Jessica had made cruel comments to younger family members, destroyed property when she didn't get attention, and shown inappropriate jealousy toward other people's success. At Christmas, 3 years earlier, Jessica had deliberately broken an expensive ornament that belonged to Helen's sister Margaret, claiming it was an accident. Helen suspected the destruction was intentional, but allowed Robert and Patricia to handle the situation privately. Jessica never apologized or offered to replace the ornament. During a family barbecue 2 years ago, Jessica had made Emma cry by criticizing her appearance and telling her she was getting fat. When Helen confronted Jessica about the cruelty, Jessica claimed she was just trying to help Emma stay healthy. Robert and Patricia defended Jessica's comments as tough love and asked Helen not to interfere with their parenting decisions. Most disturbing was Helen's revelation about an incident 6 months earlier involving Jessica's behavior toward a neighbor child. Helen had witnessed Jessica screaming at a 7-year-old boy who accidentally hit a ball into our parents' yard while playing. Jessica grabbed the child by the arm, called him names, and threatened to keep his ball permanently. Helen intervened and returned the ball, but Robert and Patricia later defended Jessica's actions as reasonable boundary setting. Helen had been growing concerned about Jessica's escalating aggression and our parents' willingness to excuse increasingly serious behavior. The assault on Emma represented a breaking point that demanded immediate family intervention to prevent future violence. Helen's most shocking revelation involved family finances and property ownership that I had never fully understood. Helen owned the house where Robert and Patricia lived, having purchased it decades earlier, and allowed them to live there without paying rent. She also owned Jessica's car, having purchased it when Jessica needed transportation for work, but couldn't qualify for financing due to her credit history. Helen had been providing this financial support under the assumption that our parents were helping Jessica develop responsibility and independence. She now realized that her generosity had enabled Jessica's destructive behavior by removing natural consequences for her actions. Helen announced that she was immediately changing her will to remove Jessica from any inheritance considerations until she received comprehensive mental health treatment and made full restitution to Emma for damages. More importantly, Helen declared that she was also removing Robert and Patricia from her will due to their enabling of Jessica's violence and their failure to protect their granddaughter. The property ultimatum was even more dramatic. Helen informed Sarah and me that she was giving Robert and Patricia 30 days to choose between supporting criminal charges against Jessica or facing eviction from their home. She would also repossess Jessica's car immediately unless Jessica surrendered voluntarily to police and agreed to comprehensive psychological evaluation. Helen's financial leverage was substantial. Robert and Patricia had no savings or alternative housing arrangements because they had spent years supporting Jessica's legal troubles and living expenses. They depended completely on Helen's generosity for their housing stability and would become homeless without her continued support. Jessica's car represented her only means of transportation to potential employment or required court appearances. Without the vehicle, she would be unable to meet her probation requirements or seek mental health treatment. Helen understood that removing these supports would force immediate compliance with legal proceedings. Helen also revealed that she had been documenting our parents' financial mismanagement for tax purposes and had discovered their pattern of covering up Jessica's thefts and fraudulent activities. As the owner of their residence, Helen could be held legally liable if she knowingly allowed criminal activity to continue on her property. Helen's intervention transformed the family dynamics completely. Within hours, the focus shifted from protecting Jessica to protecting family members from Jessica's continued violence. Robert and Patricia faced immediate financial consequences for their enabling behavior and could no longer hide behind claims of family loyalty. The psychological impact of Helen's ultimatum was immediate. Robert called me Friday evening, asking for details about the legal proceedings and timeline for filing charges. Patricia left voicemails apologizing to Emma and asking what they could do to make things right. Both parents seemed to finally understand the seriousness of Jessica's assault and their role in enabling it. Helen's arrival also provided Emma with a powerful advocate who understood the long-term implications of the assault. Helen assured Emma that the family would support her recovery completely and that Jessica would face full consequences regardless of other family members' objections. Emma finally felt protected and validated by someone with the authority to ensure justice. Helen's intervention represented a turning point where Jessica's support system collapsed and accountability became inevitable. The enablers faced real consequences, the victim received powerful advocacy, and the perpetrator lost the protection that had allowed her behavior to escalate. Helen had cut through years of dysfunction with decisive action that prioritized Emma's safety over family politics. Detective Lisa Chen arrived at our house Monday morning with Officer Mark Rodriguez to take formal statements about Jessica's assault on Emma. Sarah had contacted the police department Friday afternoon after Helen's ultimatum gave us family support for pressing charges. Detective Chen specialized in domestic violence cases and understood the complex dynamics involved when family members commit serious crimes. Emma provided a detailed statement describing the assault, including Jessica's premeditation, the recording of the attack, and the destruction of her personal property. Detective Chen was impressed by Emma's composure and clarity, despite her obvious emotional trauma. The evidence Sarah had compiled, including videos, photographs, and documentation of damages, provided a strong foundation for criminal charges. Detective Chen initially approached the case with some skepticism, as family conflicts often involve exaggeration and misunderstandings that don't constitute serious crimes. However, reviewing Jessica's recorded video of the assault changed her perspective completely. The footage showed clear evidence of premeditated violence against a minor, with Jessica laughing at Emma's distress and making threatening comments about future retaliation. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Detective Chen ran Jessica's name through the police database and discovered multiple previous interactions with law enforcement. Officer Rodriguez recognized Jessica immediately from domestic disturbance calls he had responded to over the past 18 months, including the incidents involving her ex-boyfriend Marcus and co-worker Amanda. Detective Chen obtained Jessica's complete criminal history and discovered a pattern of escalating violence and harassment that had been consistently minimized through plea bargains and family intervention. The juvenile records Sarah had uncovered were particularly concerning because they showed Jessica's tendency to target younger, more vulnerable victims in situations where she had initial access and trust. Police contacted Amanda Wilson, Jessica's former co-worker, who provided additional evidence about Jessica's capacity for sustained harassment and retaliation. Amanda described months of threatening behavior that escalated after Jessica was fired, including phone calls at all hours, vandalism of Amanda's car, and attempts to sabotage Amanda's new relationships by spreading false rumors about her personal life. Amanda revealed that Jessica had created fake social media accounts to monitor Amanda's activities and had shown up at Amanda's apartment complex multiple times despite the restraining order. Police had arrested Jessica for these violations, but she received only probation due to overcrowded jails and her attorney's negotiation skills. The investigation uncovered Jessica's extensive online activity related to planning Emma's assault. Digital forensics revealed that Jessica had researched assault techniques, watched instructional videos about inflicting psychological trauma, and communicated with online forums dedicated to revenge planning. Her internet history showed months of preparation and fantasy about attacking family members she resented. Most disturbing was the discovery of Jessica's stalking behavior toward our family that had gone undetected for over 6 months. Police found hundreds of photographs Jessica had taken of Emma at school, Sarah at her office, and our family during routine activities. Jessica had been following Emma's daily routine, documenting her schedule, and collecting information about her friends and activities. Jessica had created detailed files about Emma's life, including photos of her walking to school, eating lunch with friends, and participating in extracurricular activities. The stalking extended to taking pictures of our house at different times of day, apparently to determine when family members were home alone. Police found evidence that Jessica had been planning more extensive attacks beyond the haircutting incident. The stalking evidence revealed Jessica's systematic approach to targeting Emma specifically. She had researched Emma's college application timeline, homecoming plans, and relationship with her boyfriend Tyler. Jessica's plan included destroying Emma's academic opportunities, social relationships, and self-confidence through a series of escalating attacks designed to cause maximum psychological damage. Police also discovered that Jessica had been catfishing Tyler through fake social media accounts, attempting to convince him that Emma was cheating or lying about her feelings. Jessica had created elaborate fictional personas to gain Tyler's trust and then shared fabricated evidence of Emma's supposed betrayals. Tyler had become suspicious of the accounts and blocked them, but Jessica had continued creating new profiles to maintain the deception. Detective Chen interviewed Tyler and several of Emma's classmates, who provided additional evidence of Jessica's inappropriate interest in Emma's social life. Classmates reported seeing an older woman matching Jessica's description, taking photos near the school, and asking questions about Emma's activities and friends. The school's security cameras confirmed Jessica's presence on campus multiple times without authorization. The investigation expanded when Detective Chen contacted Jessica's former therapist, Dr. Patricia Hendricks, who had been treating Jessica through the court-ordered counseling program. Dr. Hendricks revealed that Jessica had expressed violent fantasies about harming family members during therapy sessions, and had specifically mentioned wanting to hurt Emma as a way to punish our parents and me. Dr. Hendricks had documented Jessica's statements about feeling entitled to take revenge against family members who she perceived as having advantages she lacked. Jessica had described detailed plans for causing emotional trauma to Emma, and had shown no remorse for her intentions during therapy sessions. Dr. Hendricks had been considering reporting these statements, but Jessica had stopped attending sessions before action could be taken. The police investigation also uncovered Jessica's attempts to recruit accomplices for her planned attacks on our family. Text messages showed Jessica reaching out to former friends and acquaintances seeking support for her revenge fantasies, and trying to convince others that our family deserved to be taught humility through harassment and destruction of property. Monica Fletcher, Jessica's closest remaining friend, admitted to police that Jessica had asked her to help spread embarrassing content about Emma online and to participate in future harassment activities. Monica had initially agreed to help, but became uncomfortable with Jessica's increasing obsession with hurting a teenage girl and had begun avoiding contact. Based on the comprehensive evidence, Detective Chen recommended multiple felony charges against Jessica, including assault, stalking, harassment, destruction of property, and creation of child exploitation material through recording Emma's assault. The charges carried potential prison sentences totaling over 10 years, ensuring that Jessica would face serious consequences for her escalating criminal behavior. The investigation also revealed the extent to which our parents' enabling had allowed Jessica's behavior to escalate into serious felony territory. Detective Chen explained that early intervention and accountability might have prevented the assault on Emma and the extensive stalking behavior that preceded it. The family's pattern of covering up Jessica's crimes had directly contributed to the escalation that culminated in attacking a minor. 6 months after Jessica's arrest, I stood in Judge Catherine Morrison's courtroom, watching my sister receive her sentence for the assault on Emma and the extensive stalking charges that followed the police investigation. Jessica had eventually pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommended sentence that included 3 years in state prison, 5 years of probation, mandatory psychological treatment, and permanent restraining orders protecting Emma and our entire family. The transformation in Jessica's appearance and demeanor was striking. Gone was the smirking confidence she had displayed while cutting Emma's hair. Prison had forced her to confront the reality of her actions without family members enabling her delusions or minimizing her crimes. She had participated in anger management classes, received psychiatric medication for previously undiagnosed mental health conditions, and begun taking responsibility for years of escalating violence. Jessica's letter to Emma, delivered through the court system to ensure no direct contact, represented the first genuine apology she had ever offered for her actions. The letter acknowledged the premeditated nature of the assault, accepted full responsibility for the trauma she had caused, and expressed understanding that Emma might never forgive her. Jessica committed to continuing therapy and medication compliance to ensure she never harmed another person. Emma's recovery had been remarkable to witness. With Dr. Garrett's help, she had processed the trauma and developed coping strategies that actually made her stronger than before the assault. Her hair had grown back beautifully, though she had chosen a shorter style that required less maintenance and felt more mature. The experience had taught Emma about her own resilience and the importance of surrounding herself with people who truly supported her. The college application process had ultimately benefited from Emma's experience with trauma recovery and victim advocacy. Her essay about overcoming assault and supporting other victims had impressed admissions officers and earned her acceptance to her first-choice university with a substantial scholarship. Emma planned to study psychology and law, with the goal of helping other assault victims navigate the legal system. Emma's relationship with Tyler had deepened through their shared experience of supporting each other during the legal proceedings. Tyler had testified at Jessica's sentencing hearing about the impact of the assault on Emma's emotional well-being and their relationship. His loyalty and support during Emma's recovery had strengthened their bond and matured both teenagers significantly. The family consequences had been equally significant. Robert and Patricia had faced a painful reckoning with their role in enabling Jessica's escalating violence through years of excuses and financial support. The prospect of losing their home and Helen's support had forced them to confront their failures as parents and grandparents. Family therapy with Dr. Stephen Martinez had been a requirement for Robert and Patricia to maintain their relationship with Helen and continue living in her house. The therapy process had revealed deep-seated resentment and competition between family members that had been brewing for decades. Robert struggled with feelings of inadequacy compared to my professional success, while Patricia felt excluded from our family's lifestyle and opportunities. The therapy sessions had been difficult, but ultimately healing. Robert and Patricia had to acknowledge their favoritism toward Jessica, their enabling of her criminal behavior, and their failure to protect Emma from a dangerous family member. They committed to ongoing counseling and to supporting Emma's recovery without making excuses for Jessica's choices. Helen's intervention had been the catalyst for genuine family healing rather than the superficial peacekeeping that had allowed problems to fester for years. Her willingness to use financial leverage to demand accountability had forced everyone to confront reality rather than continuing to enable destructive behavior through misguided family loyalty. The financial consequences for Robert and Patricia extended beyond housing security. They had established a trust fund for Emma's education, using money from selling Jessica's car and personal belongings, along with funds they had previously used to pay Jessica's legal expenses and living costs. The trust fund would cover Emma's undergraduate education and provide resources for graduate school if she chose to continue her studies. Sarah's role throughout the crisis had strengthened our marriage significantly. Her immediate decisive response to protect Emma and seek justice had shown me a side of my wife I hadn't fully appreciated before. Sarah's professional skills in crisis management and strategic planning had been essential to achieving a positive outcome for Emma and our family. The experience had also deepened Sarah's bond with Emma, who gained tremendous respect for her stepmother's fierce advocacy and refusal to accept excuses for inexcusable behavior. Sarah had modeled for Emma how to respond to trauma with strength, preparation, and determination to prevent future harm to others. My relationship with Emma had evolved as well. Seeing my daughter's resilience and grace under pressure had filled me with pride and admiration. Emma's decision to advocate for other assault victims and turn her trauma into a platform for helping others demonstrated maturity and strength that inspired everyone around her. The legal proceedings had validated Emma's experience and provided her with a sense of justice that facilitated healing. Knowing that Jessica faced real consequences for her actions and was receiving appropriate mental health treatment gave Emma confidence that she was safe and that her trauma mattered to the broader community. Looking back on the crisis, I realized that Jessica's assault on Emma had ultimately revealed the true character of every family member. The people who genuinely cared about Emma's well-being had responded with support and advocacy, while those more concerned with avoiding conflict or protecting their own interests had revealed their priorities through their actions. The experience taught our family that authentic love requires holding people accountable for their harmful actions, rather than enabling them through misguided loyalty. Real family support means protecting vulnerable members from dangerous individuals, even when those individuals share our DNA. Emma's trauma had been genuine and severe, but it had also become the foundation for personal growth, stronger relationships, and a commitment to helping others facing similar challenges. The assault that was intended to destroy Emma's confidence and future had ultimately made her more resilient, compassionate, and determined to make a positive impact on the world. As we prepared to celebrate Emma's high school graduation and her upcoming departure for college, I felt profound gratitude for the people who had supported our family during the darkest period we had faced together. Helen's courage in demanding accountability, Sarah's strategic response to crisis, Dr. Garrett's therapeutic support, and Detective Chen's thorough investigation had all contributed to Emma's recovery and Jessica's appropriate punishment. The family that emerged from this crisis was smaller but healthier, with clear boundaries around acceptable behavior and a commitment to protecting vulnerable members from harm. Emma had learned that she possessed strength she never knew existed, and that lesson would serve her well as she began her adult life with confidence and purpose. The hair that had taken 6 years to grow had been destroyed in minutes, but Emma's character had been revealed to be far more beautiful and enduring than any physical attribute. The assault that was meant to teach Emma about humility had instead taught our entire family about resilience, justice, and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it requires difficult choices about family relationships. I want to ask you a question that I hope will encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences. Have you ever faced a situation where family loyalty conflicted with protecting someone you love from harmful behavior? How did you navigate the difficult balance between maintaining family relationships and ensuring safety for vulnerable family members? Please share your story in the comments below and let me know how you found the courage to make the right choice, even when it was painful. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the importance of protecting those we love from harm, please hit the like button to show your support. Your engagement helps me continue sharing stories about overcoming adversity and finding strength in difficult times. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories about family challenges, personal growth, and the courage it takes to stand up for what's right. I share new content regularly about real-life struggles and the resilience that helps us overcome them. Please share this story with anyone who might benefit from hearing about Emma's recovery and our family's journey toward healing. Sometimes people facing similar challenges need to know they're not alone, and that justice is possible even in complex family situations. Thank you for listening to my family story and for being part of a community that believes in protecting the vulnerable and supporting survivors of trauma. Your compassion and engagement make it possible for me to continue sharing these important stories. I wish you and your family strength, love, and the wisdom to make the right choices when it matters most.